You're listening to The Jacob Volk Show. He's breaking down the latest and greatest in sports as only he can. Follow him on Twitter at RealJacobVolk. Here he is, Jacob Volk.
Hello, sports fans. Welcome to another edition of the Jacob Volk Show. I am Jacob Volk. Before I get into anything, I just want to say, please, 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 go out and vote. It's so important. The majority of states allow same-day voter registration. So you can register on Election Day and be eligible to vote today. The majority of states do allow that. So look online to see if you live in a state that allows it. If you've already registered to vote, what are you waiting for? Get out and vote. Quite honestly, I don't care if the line is long. That's what this show is for. Alright? Put some headphones on, or don't, so more people can enjoy this show. Free advertising, nothing better than that. And that will help you pass the time. So I don't care who you vote for. Donald Trump, who I voted for, Joe Biden, a third-party candidate, or you wrote in Mickey Mouse. Your vote matters. Okay. On to Monday Night Football. Admittedly, I was wrong about this game. I thought the Buccaneers were gonna walk all over the Giants. But they didn't. Actually, for the majority of the game, the Giants were up. The Giants were the better team. But Daniel Jones did what Daniel Jones does. He threw 2 interceptions that led to 10 Buccaneers points. I'll get into the controversial flag, then no flag in a minute, but the simple fact is, if Daniel Jones doesn't throw those 2 interceptions, the Giants win. It never should have come down to that 2-point conversion. This game was the perfect epitome of Daniel Jones. Moments where he looks great. The 4th and 5 conversion was a great job by Jones and a great job by Slayton. And the touchdown late to Golden Tate, that was a great throw. Daniel Jones has moments where he looks like a really good quarterback. But he doesn't look like that consistently. That's the thing. That's what drives you nuts. For every jaw-dropping throw, for every incredible display of athleticism, he makes boneheaded decisions. He misses deep throws. He waits too long on passes. He doesn't identify coverage. Daniel Jones does have some of the tools necessary to be a franchise quarterback. He does. But he's not. At the end of the day, you have to be able to put it all together. And Daniel Jones hasn't done that. Daniel Jones has more turnovers through his first 20 games in the NFL than any other quarterback in NFL history, except Ryan Leaf. He has done something that Sam Darnold hasn't even done. Every game that Jones has started this year, he's turned the ball over at least once. Darnold has not done that. And Sam Darnold is the worst quarterback. one of the big topics of discussion in the offseason was, if you were starting a team from scratch, who would you rather have? Sam Darnold or Daniel Jones? Before the season started, I would have said Sam Darnold. Now, the answer is Daniel Jones. But Jones needs to be safer with the football. He didn't fumble it yesterday, which, congratulations, the offensive line actually played really well. They gave Jones time to make his throws. Jones just didn't execute them. This guy is not a franchise quarterback. If you can't see that, I can't help you. Franchise quarterbacks win more than 4 games in their first 20 games in the league. Does Daniel Jones have flashes of greatness? Yes. In fact, I'd even go as far to say that if the Giants aren't in position to draft Justin Fields or by some miracle Trevor Lawrence, roll with Jones for another year. Ian Rappaport has said that Dave Gettleman is going to survive. That means that Judge is coming back. That means that Garrett's coming back. That means that Patrick Graham is coming back. Let's see what Jones can do with some consistency. I'm willing to give him that. I don't think it's going to work. I really don't. But the flashes of greatness are enough for me to say, you know what? With another offseason, I can fix his tendency to turn the ball over. In Peyton Manning's first 5 years in the NFL, he threw at least 15 interceptions in every year. Now, granted, his second year, the Colts went 13-3. The Giants are guaranteed not to go 13-3. But at least there's some precedent to a young quarterback who turns the ball over a lot, putting it all together, and becoming a future Hall of Famer. Do I think that's going to happen? No. But I can understand the argument, if you're Dave Gettleman, to keep Jones around unless you're in position to draft Justin Fields. If the Giants clean house, then yes, move on from Daniel Jones. And that's what I think the Giants should do. I listened to a lot of Moose and Maggie today on WFAN because the podcast is being uploaded a little later than usual. I had that luxury. I do like them. I think they're a good show. I know Brian Monzo pretty well. I know Chris McMonagle pretty well. They're good guys. I have nothing against anyone affiliated with that show. But I just don't understand the optimism that Moose and Maggie have about the Giants. It's kind of funny. The callers have been the ones that have been more pessimistic. So give the callers credit. But you've got the host saying, Judge is establishing culture. The Giants are having close losses. The players like him. They're fighting for him. They're not getting blown out. Blah, blah, blah. Are they watching the same team that I'm watching? Are the Giants losing close games? The answer is yes. But here's a newsflash. And the fact that I've needed to say this so much is incredible. A blowout loss like the one the Jets had on Sunday looks the same in the standings as the 2-point loss that the Giants had yesterday. There is no difference. If the Giants were really headed in the right direction, why are they 1-7? They are worse this year than they were last year. The Giants last year went 4-12. Look at the rest of their schedule. Find me 3 more wins. If they're going to go on a big win streak, it's got to happen now. Their next 3 games are against Washington, the Eagles, and the Bengals. And between the Eagles and the Bengals is their bye. After the Bengals, it's at Seattle, then they host the Cardinals, they host the Browns, and at Baltimore. They close the season at home against the Cowboys. They're going to beat the Cowboys. Can they beat Washington? Yes. Can they beat Philly? Yes. Can they beat Cincy? Yes. It's not out of the realm of possibility. But they still have to do it. That's the thing. It's not a guarantee. It's not a far-fetched notion, but it's not a guarantee. If the Giants go 5-11, okay, fine. Modest step forward. You did it without Saquon Barkley. James Bradbury has looked really good. The defensive line has looked really good. I can understand it, but as of right now, they're 1-7. They're the second worst team in the NFL. As of this very moment, they have the second overall pick. I hope that Gettleman would take Justin Fields. Justin Fields is going to be a much better quarterback than Daniel Jones. It's not even close. A new GM definitely would take Justin Fields. But what boggles my mind is that there are a bunch of people, a sizable minority, not advocating for that. They're okay with running it back for another year. Let me ask you something. Are you watching the Jets? A franchise quarterback in his 3rd year who's failed? A head coach that is in way over his head? A clueless GM? You can't tell me that can't happen to the Giants. If Jones regresses again, you can't tell me that the Giants can't turn into the Jets. Let me ask you something. What do you think the right decision is? Run it back next year with Gettleman, Judge, Garrett, Graham, and Jones? Or getting a whole new regime in to fix this once proud Giants organization? The moral victory argument means nothing to me. In the last 4 seasons, the Giants have gone 13-43. They are an embarrassment to the NFL. Dave Gettleman has proven that he is inept. The culture argument that people make for Joe Judge, culture means nothing unless you win. You can say all the right things, you can do all the right things in practice, unless you do it on Sunday or Monday, as the case may be, it means nothing. It honestly boggles my mind that people can watch the Giants and say that they want to run this whole thing back. You're okay with being 1-7? Close losses are irrelevant. How about you win those close games? How's that for a crazy idea? How about you don't give up a late touchdown-getting drive to the Eagles on Thursday night? How about your quarterback doesn't throw 2 killer interceptions and puts the ball in Dion Lewis's hands on time? By the way, that was not pass interference. That was a good job by the refs in picking that flag up. That is a bang-bang play. You don't want the game being decided by that. You want to tell me that if you slowed it down to like a millionth of a second, You could see that Winfield got there before the ball. Fine. You know what, you can tell me that, but is that really how you want a game decided? Come on. Then we have to do that on every play, slow it down to a millionth of a second. We can't just do it in late game situations. It was not pass interference. Pass interference should be clear and obvious. There's no way that's clear and obvious. If you have to slow it down to the nth degree, then it's not clear and obvious. And even if they get another shot at it, who's to say they convert? And who's to say the Buccaneers don't win it in overtime? You know, I actually give the average Giants fan credit. They were saying, yeah, this is a bad loss. We're 1-7. This is bad. But to the people saying that there's hope, yeah, there's hope if you blow this thing up. But do you really have faith in Gettleman? Do you really have faith in this coach? Do you really have faith in this quarterback? You're deluding yourself if you do. The Jets are the worst team in the NFL, but the Giants aren't that far behind them. Both teams need to blow this thing up to kingdom come. As for the Buccaneers, great game for Tom Brady. Threw for just under 300 yards. He threw for 2 touchdowns. Completed all 4 of his targets to Gronkowski. Mike Evans looked really good. And he got this no-name involved, Jaden Mickens. Who on earth is Jaden Mickens? Admittedly, I had never heard of him before yesterday. But he looked good. 5 catches for 36 yards. I'll take it. That's a great job by Brady. The Buccaneers did a bad job in running the ball. That speaks volumes to the Giants' defensive line. The Giants do have some talented players. They just lack a talented one at the most important position in sports. Again, Jones has moments where he looks really good. But if you can't do it consistently, you're not going to last that long in this league. Maybe as a backup you will, but definitely not as a starter, I'll tell you that. But I'll tell you, the Buccaneers got outplayed. Were they lucky to escape with a win? The answer is yes. At the end of the day, they converted on the Giants' mistakes. That's what Brady's done his whole career. The Giants should have won this game. They just gifted the Buccaneers opportunity after opportunity. That's what makes them not a good football team. Good football teams don't do that. The Giants are by far and away the second worst team in the NFL. It's not even close. As I was editing yesterday's show, I got the news that Desmond King had been traded to the Titans. And it wasn't until I was almost done editing the show that we found out that all the Chargers got was a 6th rounder for him. I decided to save it for today, and this is a fantastic trade for the Titans. Their cornerback play has not been the best. Jonathan Joseph and Malcolm Butler have been solid, but they haven't been great. And once you get past them, it's really bad. Christian Fulton is not having a good rookie season. Chris Jackson has been absolutely useless. According to Pro Football Focus, this year he has a 33.1 overall grade. It doesn't get much worse than that. Adoree Jackson has been hurt. The Titans needed cornerback depth, And they couldn't have done much better than Desmond King. When people think of King, they think of him as just being good on special teams. And I'm not saying he's bad on special teams. He's a great, great, great return man. In 2018, he made second team All-Pro, according to the Associated Press, at punt returner. In 2018 and 2019, he had a punt return touchdown. He hasn't gotten one yet this year, but he still has half a season to get it. And also, their return man, Khalif Raymond, really hasn't been that good. Raymond only has 13 punt returns on the year, and he's only averaging 18.6 yards per return when you look at kick returns. The Titans are in a dogfight with the Colts for first place in the AFC South. They're tied right now. It's very possible that it can come down to something like special teams in deciding who ends up winning the division and getting home field advantage in the playoffs. I'll tell you, both of those teams are allowing fans in the stands. And when you look at King defensively, he's really, really good. According to Pro Football Focus, he has a 74 overall grade this year. Last year was his lowest ever, and it was 70.9. King is a really good player. Any team could use a guy like him. He's young. He's only 25 years old. Truthfully, when I first saw that he had been traded, I wouldn't have been surprised if it had been a conditional 4th rounder. The fact that the Titans only gave up a 6th for him is a steal for John Robinson. The Titans easily win this trade. Moving on now to the Dolphins, trading Isaiah Ford to the Patriots for their 7th rounder next year. And I'll give the Patriots the edge. Ford is better than a 7th rounder. This year he has 18 catches for 184 yards. The year before he had 23 catches for 244 yards. So the yards per catch are similar. Last year it was 10.6. This year it's 10.2. I think Ford's a solid player. I think Newton will enjoy throwing to him. He's a big guy, 6'2", just under 200 pounds. You gotta think that he'll be used similarly to the way that Newton utilized Kelvin Benjamin and Devin Funchess. What I'm a little confused about is why the Patriots did this. I don't mind that they traded for a wide receiver, but is Isaiah Ford that much better than Damiere Byrd? Is he that much better than N'Keal Harry? Is he that much better than Jacoby Myers? We all know he's not better than Edelman. It's okay that the Patriots wanted to upgrade their wide receiver core, but I don't think they upgraded it that much. I mean, Ford is better than a 7th rounder, so the Patriots won this trade, but it doesn't move the needle that much for the Patriots. They're still a dreadful team. Their run of dominance is finally over. Thank God. Moving on now to the Chiefs, trading DeAndre Washington and their 7th rounder this year to the Dolphins for their 6th rounder this year. And I gotta tell you, this trade doesn't make much sense for the Dolphins. They already have Myles Gaskin, Matt Breida, Jordan Howard, and Salvon Ahmed. Why do they need a 5th running back? Is Washington better than Ahmed? The answer is yes. But I was kind of high on Ahmed coming out of Washington. I thought the Jets could take him. I understand in this coronavirus climate, depth is more important than ever. But I don't think the Dolphins needed to do this. As for the Chiefs, it makes perfect sense to move on from Washington. He fell down their depth chart really quickly. He only had 3 carries this year for 5 yards and 1 catch for 2 yards. Last year for the Raiders, we saw what he could do. He had just over 3.5 yards per carry and 3 touchdowns and just over 8 yards a catch. He's a solid player. There's a role for him in the league. The Chiefs just had a bunch of guys ahead of him on their running back depth chart. Namely, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Le'Veon Bell, Darrell Williams, and Darwin Thompson. Because the Chiefs got a 6th round pick for someone who they really didn't need, and because the Dolphins didn't need Washington whatsoever, the Chiefs easily win this trade. Alright, now I'll give you some Volk talk about the MLB awards. The finalists were announced yesterday at 6 p.m. on the MLB Network. I did know that before it happened. I just forgot to mention it. I do a very bad job of teasing certain things. I've got to get better at that. But regardless, I'll go over the big awards now. They are MVP, Cy Young, Rookie of the Year, and Manager of the Year. I'll start with MVP, specifically the American League. The finalists there are Jose Abreu, DJ LeMahieu, and Jose Ramirez. As painful as this is for me to say, because I love DJ LeMahieu, if the Yankees let him walk, I'm gonna lose my mind. He doesn't deserve to be AL MVP. The number one thing is his lack of RBIs. He only had 27 RBIs this year. I understand part of that is because he bats in the top of the order. Not too many opportunities to drive in runs. But you've got to have more than 27. I'm sorry, you just do. If you want me to give you MVP, even in a 60-game season, you have to have more than 27 RBIs. That's unacceptable to me. I'm not saying LeMahieu's a bad player. Want him back. Fantastic player. But not MVP. And Jose Ramirez just wasn't as good as Abreu. Abreu had a higher batting average. He had more home runs. He had more RBIs. Abreu's the easy choice for me for AL MVP. Abreu hit .317 with 19 homers and 60 RBIs. The 60 RBIs led the majors. He played in every game this year. He was by far and away the best player on the White Sox. A White Sox team that did make the playoffs, even though they underachieved. We can't put that into consideration when we're voting for these awards. Those are the bylaws. So, Jose Abreu gets my vote for AL MVP. As for NL MVP, the finalists are Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman, and Manny Machado. Betts hit under 300. I don't think he was as dominant from an offensive standpoint as a guy like Freeman or Machado. He had no bold type this year. If you're looking at it defensively and base running, all that stuff, I understand that Betts would get your vote, but that's not what the MVP is for. The MVP is for dominance. It's very hard to be a dominant fielder. It's very hard to be a dominant base runner. I mean, you can be a dominant fielder, but that doesn't get you MVP. That gets you a Gold Glove. And when you look at Machado, he had a little more power than Freeman did. But in the two other important categories, batting average and RBIs, Freeman has the edge. Freeman hit .341 this year. Machado hit .304. Machado had 47 RBIs. Freeman had 53. Freeman also led the majors in runs and doubles. He has some bold type. Machado doesn't. That means something to me. Freeman played in every game, was by far and away the best Atlanta Brave, not even close. With all due respect to Max Fried, but Freeman was better than him. You can make the argument that Marcell Ozuna was more dominant, but I think Freeman gets the edge there because of his defense. Ozuna spent more time this year as a DH. Freeman had another outstanding year at first base. He only made one error. That's enough for me to say that he was the best Atlanta Brave. And the offensive numbers mean that he should be the NL MVP. Moving on now to Cy Young. The AL finalists are Shane Bieber, Kenta Maeda, and Hyunjin Ryu. Interestingly enough, 2/3 of those finalists, Maeda and Ryu, were Dodgers last year. They traded Maeda for Gratterall, and they let Ryu walk in free agency, and they still won the World Series. Holy pitching depth, Batman. That is incredible. All due respect to the former Dodgers, they had great seasons. Maeda went 6-1 with a 2.7 ERA and 80 strikeouts. And Ryu went 5-2 with a 2.69 ERA and 72 strikeouts. They just weren't as good as Shane Bieber. Bieber went 8-1 with a 1.63 ERA and 122 strikeouts. Forget winning the American League Triple Crown for pitchers. He won the Major League Triple Crown for pitchers. The last time a pitcher won the Triple Crown in their league, forget the major leagues, American League and National League, was 2011. Verlander won the AL Triple Crown for the Tigers. That was his MVP year. And Clayton Kershaw won it in the National League for the Dodgers. It's kind of funny. Kershaw's great year got overshadowed by Verlander's incredible year. So Bieber was so dominant that you have to give him AL Cy Young. It should be unanimous. Again, all due respect to Maeda and Ryu, but Bieber was light years better than them. It's not even close. I like Bieber a lot. Love watching him pitch. He's going to be a fantastic pitcher for years to come. Moving on now to the NL Cy Young Award. The finalists there are Trevor Bauer, Yu Darvish, and Jacob deGrom. First, let me get this out of the way right now. Jacob deGrom, in no way, shape, or form, deserves the Cy Young Award this year. There is no way you can give it to him. He was not as dominant as his previous Cy Young winning years. I didn't think he deserved it last year. I didn't even think he deserved it the year before, but I knew he was going to get it. Last year, I didn't think he was going to get it. Somehow he did, even though the only bold type on his baseball card was strikeouts, when there were more strikeouts than ever before. How do you give a guy like that Cy Young? No way did deGrom deserve it that year. Again, I didn't think he deserved it in 2018. He definitely doesn't deserve it this year. I don't care that he led the National League in strikeouts. Alright? He went 4-2 with a 2.38 ERA. That's not as good as Bauer, and it's not as good as Darvish. How on earth does Jacob deGrom get that spot over Max Fried? Because Fried would probably be my pick if he was one of the three finalists. You can't tell me that Fried didn't have as good a year as deGrom. Fried went 7-0. He had a 2.25 ERA. You want to tell me he only had 50 strikeouts? Okay, he's not a strikeout pitcher. Do you really care? He's getting outs. For God's sake, the guy went 7-0. He was undefeated. 60-game season or not, that's incredible. I mean, Gerrit Cole deserved to be a finalist in the American League also. Cole went 7-3 with a 2.84 ERA and 94 strikeouts. That's better than Maeda, and it's definitely better than Ryu. I don't understand how Cole wasn't a finalist. I don't understand how Fried wasn't a finalist. This is a joke. I mean, Cole wouldn't have won the award even if he was a finalist. Bieber has that locked up. But in the National League, I would have voted for Fried. Regardless, I'm stuck between Bauer and Darvish. I understand that Bauer has the better ERA, 1.73 to Darvish's 2.01, and Bauer had 100 strikeouts to Darvish's 93. But those are really, really close. What isn't that close is the wins. The wins matter. Bauer was playing for the Cincinnati Reds, a playoff team. Darvish was playing for the Chicago Cubs, also a playoff team, but a team that was only 3 games better than the Reds. Yet, when you look at the win-loss record, Bauer's 5-4, Darvish is 8-3. The ERA and the strikeouts are close enough that I can say that Darvish would get my vote. The winning percentage cuts more in his favor than the ERA and the strikeouts cut in Bauer's favor. It's just that simple. But again, Max Fried should have been a finalist. Definitely over deGrom. It's not even close. Fried had such a better year than deGrom. I don't know what these guys were watching. Moving on now to Rookie of the Year. The American League finalists are Christian Javier, Kyle Lewis, and Luis Robert. I can't give it to Robert. He only hit .233. He had a .302 on base. He really didn't have a great rookie season. I mean, off the top of my head, I can't think of anyone who was better than him as a rookie. But there had to be someone. I understand that Robert got a lot of the headlines, but when you boil it down to the ground, he really shouldn't have. He had 11 home runs. Okay, fine. 31 RBIs. That's not bad. Not enough to be Rookie of the Year. So it's really between Javier and Lewis. It's really tough for me to give an award to a pitcher rather than a batter. A batter just has more impact on a team over the course of a season than a pitcher does usually. And when you're looking at these two guys, Javier and Lewis, Lewis had more of an impact for the Mariners than Javier did for the Astros. I mean, when Verlander went down and Gerrit Cole left, it was up to guys like Greinke, Valdez, McCullers, and Urquidy to pick up the slack. Now, granted, Urquidy only pitched in 5 games. Javier picked up his slack, but that's just it. He was viewed as a 4th starter. I have to hold that against him a little bit. I'm not trying to take anything away from what Javier did. He had a really good season. Went 5-2 with a 3.48 ERA and 54 strikeouts. That's really, really good. I think he's going to be a really good pitcher in this league for a long time. But I think Kyle Lewis had the better season. He hit .262 with 11 home runs and 28 RBIs. Even though the Mariners didn't do much this year, they were on the periphery of the playoff race, and Lewis was, if not their best player, then either 2 or 3, depending on where you put Marco Gonzalez and Justice Sheffield. Regardless, Lewis was definitely their best hitter. I have to give my vote to Kyle Lewis. Moving on now to the National League. The finalists there are Alec Bohm, Jake Cronenworth, and Devin Williams. This is probably the toughest award. Bohm hit .338 with 4 homers and 23 RBIs. The homers and the RBIs don't jump out at you, but the batting average does. Cronenworth hit .285 with 4 home runs and 20 RBIs, but he was a pretty big part of what the Padres did this year. Devin Williams was one of the best relievers in all of baseball, and that's including the veterans. Williams went 4-1 with a .33 ERA. He only made 1 bad pitch the whole season. And it really didn't matter because the Brewers won that game 6-5 in the 11th inning. Now, granted, it took a great 9th inning comeback for them to do it. It was July 27th. But still, they got the win. For whatever it's worth, Colin Moran was the guy who hit the home run. I like Moran. I think he's a solid player. I'm going to knock Cronenworth out. I think it's pretty clear that Bohm had the better year than him. So it's between Bohm and Williams. I mean, it's so close. Ultimately, Devin Williams doesn't have the one thing that I really want a reliever to have, and that's saves. Williams didn't have one save this year. The Brewers' closer was Josh Hader. He had 13. It's not a knock on Williams. I understand it's really hard to unseat Josh Hader, but if I'm going to give Rookie of the Year to a reliever over a hitter who hit .338 and had a .400 on base percentage, he's got to have a bunch of saves. It's really close. It's 51-49. I think Baum has it, but I wouldn't be upset at all if Williams won this award. The last award to talk about is Manager of the Year. The American League finalists are Kevin Cash, Charlie Montoyo, and Rick Renteria. I spoke to my buddy Mark about this, and he was kind of surprised that Cash was a finalist. And his argument was everyone knew the Rays would be good this year, so Cash shouldn't get a lot of credit. And I understand his point. I'm not saying he's wrong, but did you really think the Rays would win 2/3 of their games? Did you think they'd be the second best team in all of baseball? Forget just in terms of what happened in the postseason. In the regular season, the Dodgers were the best team in baseball, and the Rays were the second best team in baseball. That's just fact. Montoyo and Renteria are kind of similar. They led young teams to the playoffs a little ahead of schedule, but that was more because of the fact that they only had to play 60 games, rather than their managerial acumen. These guys aren't great managers. A shortened season always favors the younger teams. I'd have preferred this award to go to either Terry Francona or Bob Melvin. Probably Melvin, but Francona would have been second. Cash probably would have been third. Since I can't vote for Melvin or Francona, I'll vote for Cash. The National League finalists are Don Mattingly, David Ross, and Jace Tingler. Even though the Marlins only had 31 wins, the Cubs had 34, and the Padres had 37, Mattingly has to get this award. What he was able to do with this patchwork roster that was assembled after the Marlins had a major COVID outbreak is incredible. Very few managers in baseball history could do that. Derek Jeter was finding these guys off the scrap heap, and Mattingly was whipping these guys into shape, and he led them into the playoffs. Guys like Richard Blyer and James Hoyt were given away to the Marlins, and Mattingly turned them into really key contributors out of his bullpen. At the end of the day, that extenuating circumstance means more to me than the regular season record. Mattingly has to get my vote. Alright, I'll give you a little Volk talk about hockey. Specifically, the Detroit Red Wings locking up Anthony Mantha for 4 years at $5.7 million a year. That equates to $22.8 million total. The Red Wings had to do this. I don't mind this at all. Mantha was virtually a point-a-game player for the Red Wings last year. He had 38 points in 43 games. He's a really good first liner. Maybe he's not great, but he's really, really good. Yzerman had to lock this guy up long term. It wasn't a choice. He absolutely had to. Maybe the contract is a little steep, but I can forgive it. Who else are the Red Wings going to pay? They had to lock up this key contributor of their youth movement long term. This is a really, really, really good move for the Red Wings. I like Mantha a lot. I do want to give you some Volk talk about a really sad death. And that is the death of Paul Crane. It's okay if you don't know the name, unless you're a huge, huge, huge Jets fan. You're probably not going to know the name. But Crane was a very versatile player on the 68 Jets. He went to college at Alabama, and he played center there. He was snapping the ball to none other than Joseph William Namath. He won 2 national titles in 64 and 65. He was SEC Lineman of the Year in 64. In 65, he was a first-team All-American. Somehow, Crane went undrafted. The reason that he went undrafted was because he was undersized. He was only 185 pounds, but Namath liked him, so the Jets brought him in for a workout, and the Jets signed him. He played everywhere for the Jets. He played linebacker. He was a long snapper. He was the backup center on the 68 Jets. Although, granted, John Schmidt really didn't need much help. He was willing to do whatever Weeb Ewbank wanted. He was a Swiss Army knife. In fact, a few games in the late 60s and early 70s, Crane started in the defensive backfield. He played a couple games at corner and a game at safety. He must have been doing something right because the Jets won 2 of those 3 games. He was really good on special teams, really good at blocking punts, really good at blocking field goals too. He's tied with Joe Klecko for most kicks blocked by a Jet in franchise history. Incredibly dedicated man, a bulldog, loved the game of football, went back to Alabama after he retired from the NFL and coached there for a while. Every team could use a guy like Paul Crane. His death was announced yesterday, but he died on Sunday at the age of 76. May he rest in peace. Yesterday I said that you were going to get the David Ostrowski interview on Wednesday. I was mistaken. I'm conducting that interview on Wednesday, so you're going to get it on Thursday. He's the guy who wrote the book about pro sports in 1993. Very interesting read. I'm going to talk to him tomorrow, and you're going to get the interview on Thursday. Again, please, please, please go out and vote. It's so important. It's the only way you can make your voice heard. Until next time, I am Jacob Volk saying that it's permanent for now.